Hello YouTube, this is Western Kansas Prepper here with a video which I'm entitling Get the Hell Out of Dodge. And being Western Kansas Prepper, of course, I feel like I have a special claim to knowing when the hell to get out of Dodge. And with that in mind, I'm going to make this video here to try to help you figure out when you might need to get the hell out of Dodge and how it is you go about getting the hell out of Dodge. So, I'm going to assume, for the most part, that people here know how to read a map and know how to, how to use a map. We'll look at them a little bit as I go into this video. But I think at a minimum, people should have, they should have these two items, which I'm showing you here. One of those being a road atlas of some kind, which is a, a large national road atlas. And this is what they call a Gazetteer, which I'll show you a little bit more who makes these, but I think that as part of a prepping plan you should have one of these Gazetteers for a little more detailed information than you'll get out of the Road Atlas. You should have it for your state. Road Atlas should get you to other places. The first thing that you need to think about here, I guess, is the first decision you have to make is, are you bugging out or are you bugging in? Actually, that's a bad angle, sorry. Are you bugging out or are you bugging in? And that decision, bugging out or bugging in, is going to determine, a lot of what you're going to do. So, this is just kind of a rudimentary, decision tree here. But, your first choice, bugging out or in. This video is not about bugging in. If you're going to bug in, then your decision tree ends here. You're not going to bug out. You don't need to pick your get out of Dodge route. If you're going to bug in, you need to figure out, do you need to harden your dwelling? Do you need to get some supplies ready? Hopefully you have a lot of supplies already, but you need to organize them in some way or prepare your structure for whatever you're going to be doing, or get your neighbors, get your communications going, whatever you need to do. So if you go on the other end of the decision tree, you're bugging out. The next thing you got to do, you're bugging out. So now you need to choose your route. Now it goes without saying, I think, that this decision is going to be highly contextualized based on what circumstances you're facing. You may have a few contingency plans that you develop now, ahead of time. You may have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. That's kind of what I have. But when I know the facts of what SHTF event I'm facing, then that's when you sit down and, however much time you have to evaluate, do I execute plan A, B, or C? Or perhaps none of those plans will work for whatever reason. So that's why I think that once you have determined that you're going to bug out, you have to choose your route, and you choose your route based on what I'm calling here the scope of your threat. Is it a temporary or local threat, or is it a regional threat, national threat, global threat, or perhaps you just don't know the extent of the threat? I think those are the situations you might face. Maybe I'm leaving something off here, but generally speaking, those are the things I think you may run into as far as the scope of a threat you might face. So, with that in mind, I have both of these atlases here in what you call atlas covers. You can get these. They're kind of pricey. I mean, they're like $13 for this. It's not a real good deal, but it does keep it waterproof. I think they make them for RV campers or something. And, this is that Gazetteer I was talking about, made by the Delorme company. They make them for all 50 states, of course. So, your Gazetteer has a couple of uses in this analysis. But primarily, you're going to be looking at, if you're bugging out, I think you're going to be looking at your road atlas first. So I'll get those out. Now, I'm not going to tell you, of course, exactly where I live. But, you know, I think you know with my handle, Western Kansas Prepper, I don't think it's a secret I live in Western Kansas. So that's the page I am turning to, which is, Western Kansas, which that's the whole state of Kansas. If you're not familiar with our whatever shaped state, it's almost a rectangle, but not quite. It's not a rectangle on the border of the river up there, the Missouri River. But anyway, we're in this area. Here's good old Dodge City, which of course is getting the hell out of Dodge. So let's take Dodge City. And of course, the thing that is going to make it different for me as opposed to you in your situation, many of the people watching this video, I'm sure, will live within some close distance to a major U.S. interstate. Dodge Cityans do not live within a very close range to any major federal interstate. For me to get to any federal interstate from Dodge City, I'm going to have to either go completely 2 hours, 2.5 hours to the east to get to Wichita, or I'm going to have to go about 2.5 hours north to get to I-70, Hayes, in that area. So, you know, interstates are not really part of the initial getting the hell out of Dodge. Now, I think that can be good and bad, depending on the scenario. So, the first thing, you know, I'm going to also look at the Gazetteer here, and you can look at the back here, divide this up into grids, and you figure out what grid you're on. So here, look, grid 57 is Dodge City. That's page 57. I'll turn to page 57 on the Gazetteer. This is a detailed map here of Dodge City and the townships surrounding it. Gives you all the waterways, what have you. It also gives you, if you look real close, it gives you all the back roads, which I think is nice also for your SHTF plan. So, in any event, again, you need to figure out what your scenario is. So, you know, if you're deciding to bug in, this can be useful too, because it can show you different locations for water, different locations for camping resources, animal areas, those kind of things. Gazetteers are good for that. But it may be a temporary local phenomenon, like Hurricane Katrina was temporary or local. I mean, it took out a good area, but you know, we could have that here. If you were in the Greensburg tornado, you had definitely a local HSTF event, and you didn't need to run for Canada, you know, because there was a tornado, or you don't need to run for Canada because there's a hurricane, or you don't need to, you know, get into the ocean or something. You just need to get to a place where you can reasonably have food and shelter and those kind of things. And you know, the best thing, of course, in a temporary or local scenario is if you have relatives that live close but not in the area of the danger. So if that's the scenario, you know, if you have family or friends that you can rely on that will help you in a time of need, then that's the place to go in a temporary or local scenario like that. If you don't have friends or family, then you know you're going to have to make some choices. You're either going to have to, if you have resources, you're going to need to go, you know, you can go get a hotel somewhere, I guess, or what have you, or you can try to just relocate the best you can. If you don't have any resources, you know, you may have to go to a FEMA camp. You may have to, you know, deal with trailers. You may have to, you know, go to a homeless shelter, or, you know, somewhere out of the area. You know, whatever you can do. You maybe if you're prepared enough, you'll have camping equipment, and you can go do that camping with your prep equipment for as long as you can last. So that's, you know, that's a fortunate thing to do there. Regional. So what I mean by regional, I mean something that's going to affect a decent, you know, with less than national. So it's not a national phenomenon, it's a regional phenomenon. It's going to affect a good chunk of the area that you're in. By a good chunk of the area, I don't mean an area of Kansas, I mean, it's going to affect a good chunk of the United States. But not, you know, not all of it. So that can be, you know, a solitary nuclear event. Can be a biohazard type event. Can be some type of natural disaster. What have you. But it affects a whole region of the states. You know, a nuclear meltdown would be a good example, or a bomb or something going off. Fallout would contaminate an area, but if you get out of the area, you're okay. So my plan, if that happens, is, you know, to get on some highways. Assuming Colorado's not affected, I'd be heading... Can't focus on that. I'd be heading... Now, keep in mind, it's not actually where I live, but if I was in Dodge City, I'd be heading west, hopefully through Garden, or I could take some back roads if I needed to up there. There's some back roads I know that go north of Garden, if I felt like the highways weren't going to work. Until I got into eastern Colorado, where, as you can see, there's pretty much a lot of nothing. If you got far enough in the mountains, you're probably away from whatever you were dealing with, assuming that's the direction you want to go. You may not work, you know, you may need to go the opposite direction. I'm kind of hesitant to go east, you know, because you get more populated, you get more chaos. Maybe I'm going to go north. I'm going to go to Dakota, you know, or Montana. That would be kind of, or through Wyoming. I would be more inclined to go those directions because you have less population, you have less volatility, because you have less people to deal with. In an HSTF, I think that's what you're looking for. I think if you go east, the more further east you go, I think, you know, and I'm sure we got people from the East Coast watching this. You guys are going to need a good plan, because you're going to need to get, if shit really hits the fan, you're going to need to get the hell out of this area somehow. I mean, you're going to need to have a good plan, because especially if you live on, you know, you live on Long Island, or you live in Manhattan. I mean, geez, what are you going to do when the tunnel gets blocked, you know? What are you going to do when you can't get across the bridge? I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's something you got to think about. You know, if that's where you've chosen to live, where are you going to go? You know, I don't know. That to me is the hardest area to prepare this type of plan for. LA, you know, similar, but if you're in California, you can go out, you know, sure there's a desert, but you can there's ways to get out of LA, ways to get out of that area, but it's very hard to get out of this area if things are going really wrong. I was going to try to make this in one part. It may take me 2 parts, so I apologize to anybody who's watched my videos knows I'm long-winded, so my apologies on that. The next thing, you know, the next level again to consider, you know, is national. And what would a national problem be? You know, as a problem that's not regional, not biological. My thoughts were, you might have a scenario with a depression economically. Things got a lot worse. Or you might have a situation where the government had turned against the citizens and you had some type of totalitarian scenario to face. It's not something I'm very concerned about, but it's a possibility that you should think about in your planning. Alright, with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop this video, and I'll continue this in part 2.